at 6:01. As a reminder, it should be the duty of each board member to conduct themselves in a professional manner, to avoid making unnecessary noise and refrain from private conversation. The public shall also be held with the same standards of conduct. This meeting is conducted in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order, Parliamentary Procedure. At this time, would you rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Joseph Taylor.
Present.
Stephen Mitchell. Marletta C. Here. Angelica McGowan. Here. Martha Mommy. Lisa Gully.
We have a forum. At this time, we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Martha Mommy. May I have support? Supported by treasurer Angelica McGowan. Questions, comments, concerns regarding tonight's agenda? Madam Secretary.
Lisa Gully. Margaret Gass.
Yes, sir.
Martha Mommy.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Marletta C. Yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yeah. Joseph Taylor.
Yes. At this time, we have a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular session, October 10th, a special session, October 16th, a closed session, October 16th, a special session, October 26th, a special session, October 28th, and a work session, November 7th. May I have a motion?
So
Moved by trustee Gaddis. May I have support? Supported by treasurer Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the meetings? Okay, Madam Secretary.
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Marletta C. Yes. Angelica McGowan.
yes.
Martha Mommy.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
At this time, we have a presentation from the School of the Month, the Dream Academy. It's Mr. Thomas James in the audience. Mr. James, you have the floor.
Should I be moving this? I don't want to shut anything off. Good evening, everyone. And again, before I call on my fantabulous students, I want to say thank you to the board and Dr. Walker and Ms. Robinson for all the help and support that I received from you guys. So thank you so much. But I will be brief in front of you. Our year is off to a good start, but of course, it's a long road and it's a long race. It's a marathon, not a sprint by any measure. But yet tonight, the young ladies and gentlemen that I have with me represent three major goals that we're in search of to reach that level of expectation. We're looking at the standpoint of academic growth. We're looking at the standpoint of enhancement of leadership, and of course, the gathering and the complete unification of the district. So these young people before me are taking every step to take those by the horn and get them to where they need to be. So at this time, I'm gonna call these young people up and allow them to introduce themselves to you. And as they come up, I will share with you, they took place with the leadership training program. They all scored really well in NWEA, and the majority of them are taking part with the CTE programs, which unifies our district as a whole. So I'm going to turn this over to them and allow them to introduce themselves to you and share some of the things that took place through the leadership training.
Hi, I'm Kimarie Butler, and at the leadership training, I learned that I came over my shyness. Like, I was shy, I was scared to talk, and by the end of the program, I was like, I'm gonna shy. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Damaris Peterson, and at the leadership program, I learned how to be a leader. And I got over being shy and learning how to talk louder. That's all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Imani Lee, and at the leadership training, I learned about effective communication and that it's not just about you communicating with the person. You also have to make sure that they are receiving the correct messages that you are giving off. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marco Washington, and at the leadership program, I learned two things basically, is teamwork and effective communication. And ever since I learned about teamwork, it's been pretty good. And basically just mentoring more people and, make them understand leadership.
Hello, my name is Jacarla Kelly. In the leadership program, I learned communication and, eye contact, just not at one person, everybody, and a lot more.
My name is Chauncey Jefferson. At the leadership program, I learned how to talk talk properly in front of a big crowd and not be shy and be a good leader and teamwork.
Hi, I'm Jerry Washington, and at the leadership program, I learned to set your standards high and believe in yourself.
Hi, my name is Jada Powell. In the leadership program, it helped me to communicate more with my peers and bring out the leadership within me. And I want to thank Sodexo for allowing us to work with Dr. Dennis. It was a great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Butler made a statement of saying it brought her out of her shyness. I'm gonna have to talk to Dr. Des about that because I would rather have her not confront me every second that she sees me. Because without question, these young people pull my shirt tail every day because of the simple fact that there are things that I may miss in the hustle of a new day, but they keep me on task. But as I said, they're running a race that I'm proud to run with them. So this is Dream Academy, and we are in full effect for the year. And we are looking forward to a brighter road. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Can we have the young people come up just to shake their hands and say, great job? Yes, ma'am.
We'd also like to thank Sodexo. We're here, I saw page you, just to affirm that Sodexo paid for this 4-week training. The students spend an entire day engaged in dialogue and activities around being an effective leader, and that was sponsored by Sodexo. So we want to thank Paige Yu and her staff as well, and I don't see them. So thank you. There she is. Thank you, Sodexo.
Okay, public participation. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak for public participation, you have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address when you come to the podium. Thank you.
Marvin Hayward, 270 Main Street. It was last month that I gave you all a form that was dealing with culture and climate change, and I think Mr. Thomas has represented it quite well. Because when it comes to these students, there is a different way in order that we can teach them so that they may excel. And I'm asking that we continue to put our best foot forward, because we, as we say, we're not in a race, we're in a marathon. We have a long way to go that these kids may be to that level, you know. And I think that a lot of times it comes with knowing the culture and the climate of the children that you're teaching in order that you can reach these children. I'm quite impressed with Mr. James, because a lot of the kids, they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to be a part of the bands of society. But because of a lot of situations that they face that may be other than in the school, they have challenges when they come to school, because there's certain things that they're not able to relay to you all based on the fact they have to feel that love, they have to feel that bond, you know. And if they don't feel that bond, they sometimes tend to maybe act out. The young man who I spoke with earlier, who came from one of the meetings where y'all allowed him to go back to the Dream Academy on the night shift. I can't recall his name at this moment. But I was impressed with what he said, because he said he wants to learn. You know, he got in trouble during the morning hours, and I think sometimes kicking them out and expelling them, it may not be the right answer, because a lot of them, if you just talk to them, you'll be able to see that they truly want to learn, but they just deserve a chance. You know, and as I say, this didn't happen overnight. You know, it's a long road. And as I talked to Dave Whitlam and a few more individuals this past week, like I told them, failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. And we will not allow the schools to be closed. And so that's one of the things that I will continue to fight for. I will go around my elbow to get to my thumb, to get what I need done in the government so that these kids can excel and have an opportunity to achieve the greatness that they desire. You know, and so I ask that everybody get involved. You know, sometimes we have to go into the schools, we have to let them see our presence, we have to let them know that we truly care. You know, sometimes it's more than meetings. You know, you have to put the hands of the control back into the principals and stuff, because without them, we have nothing. I mean, we have nothing. And, you know, as I say, I once again want to applaud Mr. James for the great work that he's doing with them students. Them students trust him and they'll follow him wherever he goes. And I'm quite sure that he's leading them in the right direction, and that's what we need in most of our classrooms.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation?
Good evening. My name is Paige McKinley, and I'm the general manager of the Student Nutrition Program for Benton Harbor Area Schools with Sodexo Magic. On Thursday, October 26th, Sodexo Magic was proud to partner with Benton Harbor Area Schools to host our first culinary throwdown competition. We had the opportunity of putting together 2 teams of 3 talented students to compete against each other. The participants of the culinary throwdown were, I hope I don't mess up their names, bear with me if I do, Donisha Carter, Destiny Jordan, Sincere Archibald, Shankway Woodard, Zanasia Johnson, and Tiana Turner. These students were selected by the hospitality teacher, Ms. Jennifer Gunter. The 2 participating teams were expected to prepare an entree and a side dish and a salad. Our participants selected recipes from Sodexo Magic's Chief Culinary Advisor, Chef G. Garvin's recipes. Through this competition, we were able to provide the students with the opportunity to learn about food safety, sanitation, temperatures, and most importantly, how to work as a team. These participants devoted their time after school to practice, prep, and get familiar with the menu that was put together. Overall, their commitment and teamwork paid off, and we were pretty impressed. Unfortunately, I was not able to get all the participants to attend today because they had previous engagements, but both teams put a spin on the recipes and their execution was very impressive. The winning teams were, their dish was a lemon chicken served with broccoli, garlic bread, and a chef's choice of a tomato and mozzarella salad. All the participants were awarded various gifts, which also included an autographed copy of Chef Garvin's book, which is titled Turn Up the Heat. On behalf of Sodexo Magic, we just want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Walker for giving us the opportunity to host our culinary throwdown, Mrs. Robinson for being part of the judges, and for all the board members who Even though we're not able to make it, showed us all the support we needed. And for those who did attend, thank you for the support. We're excited to work on this great partnership and bring more and exciting events to the food service program at Benton Harbor Area Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public participation? So I see in the audience, Mrs. Moore. Were we supposed to give your daughter from technology, she's to receive a certificate, I guess, a while ago?
We didn't come prepared to do that today because it wasn't on the agenda, so
Okay.
we'll make sure we get her on the agenda.
You want to do it? We can do it now, we can give it to her later, it's up to you.
Oh, that's fine.
Since she's here.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I have the pleasure of bringing Daisha Moore in front of you tonight because Daisha spent some time in the technology department this summer. She learned the ins and outs of what it's like to be in IT. All good, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we just wanted to make sure that the board understood that she did a student internship. We couldn't pay her for that. She volunteered her time to help us. And we are so appreciative of that time. We look forward to hopefully having her back another summer and hopefully securing maybe some funding at some point to be able to pay her for doing what she did. So she'd learned all kinds of cool stuff. She was re-imaging computers and doing all that. And she's going to be the person that's going to keep me on my toes at the high school to make a student help desk helper. So we're going to continue to talk about that and make that happen for Benton Harbor High School. And is there anything you want to tell about your experience?
Sure. During my time working with IT, I really enjoyed it. And actually I'm trying not to cry because it was such an emotional experience for me. Because it doesn't feel like work. It's like I'm home and I love going every day, learning something new. And so I appreciate the opportunity and I really thank you. No problem.
So we have something else, Ms. Aisha?
So I mentioned her today in one of our briefing sessions. She actually spends her time with advisory tutoring students during the Algebra 2, and she was so patient with working with her peers. I do want to mention that she also tutors on her time where she doesn't have to, but she volunteers, so she tutors in Algebra 2.
And I want to give one more shout out because when we started the Lego League, I reached out to Daisha because she's one of the students on First Robotics with me. And I knew I could count on her. So not only is she in the classroom, she's also a head mentor for our young people. And so she's getting them and coaching them for our First Robotics competition this Saturday on the 18th in Grand Rapids. So standout students, she's taking college courses. This has been Harbor Area Schools right here before you. And so this is why we do what we do, to make sure that we can help enhance Dream Academy students, Ben Harbor high school students, all of our students, so we can have 21st century education. So if you come forward, we love to shake your hand.
Mom, you're doing it right, Mom. Way to go.
Okey-dokey. So great things happening. Mrs. Robinson, instructional and student support.
Good evening, board. You have two documents linked in your agenda. The first link is a data protocol process. Wanted to share this with you because this is actually the process that we use when we're reviewing data and our meetings and our quarterly meetings and things like that. So what I'd like to do is kind of take you through that process, if you would allow us to, using our data. Okay. So this document has columns on it, and we'll just kind of verbally. Columns of activated, engaged, kind of our guiding questions. This is kind of like a raw read, just a cold read. What do you predict about the data? The next question is, I'm surprised by. So after you look at the data, what are you surprised by? What sticks out to you? And then after looking at the data, what do you conclude? So I conclude that, and then you would finish that. And then the last column is our next action steps. I see possible solutions, edits. So I had Dr. Walker to hand out two documents. One has the data on it. The other is the document that we actually use. So you'll feel free to write on this document if you want to, or you can just kind of just share out your information or your comments as we go through the data, okay? So if you click on the next link, which says Fall NWEA data, you'll see two charts there. The top chart is the reading chart. The bottom chart is the math chart. It is color coded, so green shows that there was an increase. Yellow is stayed the same, and the red is decreased, or the satin color. So we won't do a prediction because really you already have the answers there, okay? And so what I'd like us to do is just kind of look at the data, the math and the reading, and think about something that you're surprised by from this data piece that you have in your hands. So this is our NWEA data that has, at the far right column, you'll see our fall-to-fall gains and scores of students who tested last year in the fall and also this year in the fall. So you'll have the 2016 or the 2017, 2018 data. The column right next to that shows last year's fall-to-fall data. You see that? Can you see it? But you can zoom in to it as well, make your screen bigger.
It only zooms just so far.
Oh,
Wait till you get those.
Okay,
I don't understand.
And then the tab next to that, you'll see up across the top, it says students fall-to-fall scores. So you'll have that, and it'll say fall growth target. That means how many kids actually met their growth target of those who tested in the fall, and those who tested in the fall this year, and those who tested in the fall last year. You also see two columns that says all students tested. So that could be students who tested this year, but did not test last year. And,
When this is tested, and it shows the fall of 16, 17, and fall of 17, 18, say sixth grade, those are not the same students, right?
Right. But when it says fall to fall, and it says students with fall to fall scores, it is their fall to fall scores. Those who tested last year in sixth grade, and then those who have test scores this year in the seventh grade. Okay, so it'll be apples to apples. So as you're looking at this, you're going to think of what are you surprised by this data? What surprises you? Any other surprises?
One of the levels that did have more of an increase was this race, 8th grade. And that has quite often been a complementary. So it's surprising that they would increase more than some of the other levels.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, they also improved on our stuff as well.
Ms. Gass?
Do you know why?
I know, the teacher, a lot of it is to the teacher, the teacher that they had. She was a seasoned teacher. Had a lot of strategies that she put in place in that classroom, and the expectations were high. Students met the expectations that she put out there, so. So if we don't have any other surprises, the next question would be, I conclude that. So one of the things is that Mrs. Gass kind of already answered that question. I conclude that there was a stable teacher in that classroom. There were lots of strategies going on. Teacher had expectations from the growth that we saw in the 8th grade classroom. And the last question would be, yes.
Can you speak to, again, so we can kind of grasp what's really good here and the reasons why, and I'm looking at the change 2016 to 2017, reading in 9, 10, and 11.
And are you looking at the fall to fall grid scores, grid gains?
Well, I'm looking at percent being fall to fall growth target. So it's, it's, when I'm looking at, I'm looking mostly at junior high and high school, particularly high school scores. Again, do you have any idea what's helping with make that kind of change, that kind of positive change?
I really believe a part of it has been a focus on the PLCs and the dialogue and the strategies that goes on in those PLCs, having those discussions. We did start that really intensely last school year. So a big part of that is that. For middle school, we did implement our curriculum sound as well. They had time that past summer to work on the curriculum, the basic guides then as well. They tweaked it again this past summer, so a lot of that goes to that. Those high school teachers were also involved with that summer training and some developing of the curriculum and just kind of revising some of those pieces. So they were highly involved. At the high school level, like I said, we have, I know we have 3 teachers who have been there for a number of years in our district, and ELA, our reading teachers, so a lot of that goes back to that as well. I know those are the summer work helped.
So going along with that, when we're looking at the percent needing fall to fall growth target for math, looking at the high school, I'm assuming that's related to the trouble we've had with teachers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it goes back, even though we see some growth targets, some of the kids meeting their growth targets in 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, we also struggle in the middle school as well with having certified teachers and math teachers as well. So. And we have put in some structures. We're still continuing the structures in the high school with having R&D coaches there as well. But we just have to have consistent substitute teachers in those spaces.
Any questions for Mrs. Robinson? Thank you, ma'am. All right, on to the audit presentation. We have a staff report. You got to present the auditors. Johnson.
Thank you. Reason for board consideration. Board policy requires that after the close of the fiscal year, an audit of all accounts of the district be made annually by an independent certified public accountant. Facts analysis and auditors from Hungerford Nichols completed their independent financial audit of the district's 2016-17 financial and federal grant records. A link to the 2017 audit report will be provided, and staff from Rutherford Nicholas are here this evening to present the audit report.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction, Scott. My name is Adrienne Schrauben, and I see a lot of familiar faces. I also have Carol Schackermeyer. Carol is going to touch on the federal compliance audit, and I'm going to briefly go over the financial audit. We're not going to look at a lot of, I think you all have these printed in front of you. We're actually going to look at the thickest copy of the items that you have in front of you, which is the annual financial report. We're going to end up on page 19, so if you kind of want to go there. I'm just going to kind of talk through the different parts of the audit. We don't have to go to the pages, because I know for most people this is like a foreign language. You don't look at it every day. You don't get excited about it like us accounting nerds do. So I know that it's just kind of helpful to kind of give an overview about what's in this booklet. So right at the beginning, on the first page actually has our firm's letterhead, and that's where in 2.5 pages we say that Benton Harbor had an unmodified opinion. So the language has changed a little bit, but that again is the highest opinion that we as auditors can give. So first and foremost, you did receive a passing grade from that standpoint. Kind of moving along through the audit, there on page 4, there's a section called the Management's Discussion and Analysis, or the MD&A for short. I would encourage all of you to read that. That's kind of the cliff notes of the audit. It's the most English version. It's pretty clear. And your business office actually also writes part of that. So Scott contributed to that writing. So it's a nice summary about what happened over the year, but it also talks about what you anticipate going forward. So you get to put a little bit of emphasis on that and let the public know what you anticipate going forward. And then we have what's called the district-wide statements. And I actually am going to have you turn to that page. That's on page 13 and 14. And I just want to kind of point out one number. So these are, if any of you are familiar with a for-profit business, these are the most like balance sheet and income statement of those. But it basically takes all the funds of your district, all of your debt, all of your assets, and it kind of smushes it together onto these two statements here. And the only thing I just kind of want to point out, if you'll see halfway down the page, you'll see it says net pension liability. We talked about this a few years ago, where each school district throughout the country had to record their portion of whatever pension liability they were part of. So for you, it's the state pension plan. And that says $28 million there. All schools have that on their financial statements if they're participating in the MIPSers program. I just bring that up because I want you to know that this is just the pension piece of that liability, and next year we have to add the healthcare piece to that. So again, every district throughout the country and the state of Michigan will be adding that. I don't know what that number is for you. The actuaries are working on it, but it could be anywhere from $14 to $30 million. But again, this is just on a district-wide basis. This does not affect your general fund. So it's not going to put your general fund in a further deficit. I just bring it up because if you're looking at information from year to year, I don't want you to be suddenly surprised and say, hey, how come no one told me? So it's just an accounting pronouncement that's coming up, and just to give you a heads up that you'll see that number get bigger next year. Kind of just past that, right in the middle, there's what we call the footnotes. So if there's questions about anything you had, so let's say you had a question about the pension, there's 9 whole pages that you can read about it. So if you can't read or can't sleep one night, you can pull open the footnotes, and that should help lull you to sleep. But I do kind of want to focus on page 19. The statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance is just a fancy way to say that this is your general fund budget to actual. And you know how important budgets are to your district and throughout the state of Michigan to all school districts. And just to kind of give you a little bit of frame of reference, you'll see that there are 2 budgeted amounts. One is the original and one is the final. As you know, you have to approve the original budget before the school year even begins, so there's a lot of assumptions in that. The final budget is what you would have approved in June of 2017. so fairly recently ago. And then the actual column is the actual audited financial statement numbers. So, just looking at it briefly, you had anticipated to receive 29.5 million. You only received 28.8 million. But on the expenditure side, you had planned to spend 29.8, and through either cost containment or deferral of expenditures, you only spent 26 million. So you were able to spend a lot less than you had anticipated. Kind of carrying that down, the number that you're most interested in is called the net change in fund balance. And you will see that you were able as a district to add almost $6.3 million to your fund balance. So that's a huge congratulations, because I know it's been quite a struggle. So you were able to take your fund balance from a deficit of 11.7 million to 5.4. I do just want to caution one thing, and just to kind of point out that part of that is due to some of the emergency loan, that 3.4. So I don't want to overemphasize, but still congratulations is definitely in order, because I know there's been a lot of work done to kind of increase that fund balance over a period of time. You also received two other pieces of information that I'm going to just touch on very briefly before Carol speaks. One of them is what we call like the SAS 114 letter. I'm required as an auditor to give you this information, and I'm required to share if there's difficulties or material journal entries. There are a few journal entries listed there that I, as the auditor, am required to share with you as the board, but I wanted to point out that this is far fewer than we have had in the years past. So there has been significant improvement in your business office over the past year. And they were great to work with. And just as a board to continue to support them in that. And I know that that's a challenge, just as you struggle with funding and your fund balance as well. And then the very last thing I want to kind of point out before Carol speaks, as I mentioned, I know that for most of you, this is like a foreign language. So we try to come up with this audit summary, which is basically the same information that you find in your audit packet. We tried to present the information in other ways that may be more helpful. So there's graphs and charts in there if you're a more visual learner. And so that's really just for the board's use. That doesn't go anywhere else. The last two pages are where we share our suggestions and recommendations. So again, there was significant improvement over the last year and a nice increase to your fund balance. So these are just comments that continuous improvement that can be made, and they certainly come from a place of constructive criticism, not in any means as a negative way. As I mentioned before, there was great improvement throughout the audit process and working with the business office, and we certainly appreciate that. So that's my very quick review of the financial audit before Carol speaks about the federal compliance audit, but I'm happy to take any questions you may have on this part. Sure.
I have a question under the summary.
Yep.
The summary sheet.
Sure.
Back under suggestions and
Yes.
recommendations from the auditors. I'm looking at the repeat comment on the student activity fund.
Yep.
I'm asking, so this is a repeat comment, so we haven't made the changes you suggested before?
That's correct. And I would say this is a low-hanging fruit. So there were certainly other issues to tackle in the business office, but we just wanted to point out that as they're continuing to make progress, this is one that they need to continue to focus on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So if there are no further questions, I'm going to have Carol jump in about the federal compliance audit.
Thank you. That is the skinnier of the two audits. We'll just take a very brief look at it. As Adrienne said, this is your single audit, the audit of only your federal funds that we are required to do. It just begins with our letters, as does the financial statement audit. If you turn to page 7,
That is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. We're required to show in this schedule all of the grants that you receive and what you expended in this year. We do not audit all of these funds. There is, if you go to page 13, is the summary of auditors' results. At the bottom, there's a kind of a complicated formula and different requirements that we're required to go through in order to determine what we have to audit each year. This year was the nutrition program, the lunch, the breakfast, the summer food, and we also did the Title I cluster and Title II Part A programs. This summary of auditors' results talks about the financial statements, but about halfway down where it says federal awards, there's two parts to a federal audit. It's the internal controls and the compliance. There's 12 areas in each of those two areas that are looked at in every program we test. So federal programs have a lot of compliance requirements, a lot of very detailed record keeping that's required. As Adrienne said, we did have a couple of findings in the federal programs. This was a lot better than we have seen in prior years. So I also agree that there's been a lot of improvement within the business office. So in internal control, as I said, we did have one finding, and in the compliance and the nutrition program, we did have one finding. If you explanations about those findings start on page 17. I'm not going to go through them all, but I would direct your attention to which would be page 22, the last page of the audit. This is a corrective action plan. Scott puts this together with us. We identify what the findings were and what the plan is for the district to remedy these findings. So already a plan is in place to address the findings that we had. And so this is what should happen going forward to alleviate these. That's really all I have at this point. Are there any questions that I can answer on the federal portion of the audit?
I have a question.
Yes.
So I see there 1, 2, 3, 4 unmodified, how should I say it, findings on page 13.
Yeah.
I think it's,
are you under the federal awards area there? Is that where you're looking? Or
page 13.
Yes.
And so material weaknesses identified, right?
Right. The financial statement finding goes to, it's a standard finding we have to make because your district is in a deficit fund balance position. That has been an ongoing, since it happened. That's a required financial statement disclosure that we make here. So that's what that, those first two refer to, is that finding. That would be on page 14, 2017-001, where you can read what that finding is. The other two findings were finding 002 and 003. One was an internal control where we look at processes, and there's some required documentation for written procedures that we did not find updated procedures for. So that was the internal control weakness. And then in the nutrition, it had to do with meal counts and what was tallied on the meal sheet versus what was submitted to reimbursement from the state. And that's a very, very brief, obviously, of what it was, but there's more contained in here.
I was just about page 14 in findings, because you got the context and you got the cause and effect, right? So, so how does that work?
Basically, how does it work? Do you mean as in why it's laid out this way, or?
Right, because I see that we're right, so our general fund, since we're in a deficit, I think non-compliance is the uniform budget counting it, right? So how did we fail that, or, you know, with your findings? So how did you identify that? So how are we out of link with that?
So the Uniform Budget and Accounting Act does not let you have basically a negative fund balance. And since you do have that, you're out of compliance before you even start. And until you have a positive fund balance, you're going to continue to have that finding. So that's what that finding relates to. And you've had that finding for probably 10 years, 9 years or so. So that one is not any different. The accounting standards require us to kind of write them up this way. They want to see it a very specific way. And we have to identify for this audit gets submitted to what's called the Federal Clearinghouse, which is a database that they keep track of all of this. And so we upload that information. They require a very specific formula, and we have to identify all of these things. So that would be the financial statement one. And if you continue to go on to the next 2 pages, you'll see the same kind of write-up for the written procedures and for the nutrition cluster. And I think like the recommendation for the nutrition cluster finding is to get a point of sale system in place, which I believe your business office and food service program are already in conjunction working with on that. So we believe that that finding would be taken care of. But as I said, the material weakness related to your financial statements, that won't go away until your fund balance is in a positive balance. Sure.
So on pages along those lines, so on pages 15 and 16 with the finding types, these are prior year findings?
Correct.
That were resolved when you looked at them this year. So
Correct.
everything except the fact that we're still in the deficit.
Correct.
Has
Yep.
been
Yep.
rectified.
Yes, when they begin with the 2016, that was, and it's identified as prior year, and then we usually show the resolution.
So as Carol said, it's certainly not perfect, and I don't want to give that impression, but I don't want to take away from the fact that there has been significant improvement over the past year, particularly in the business office and the policies and procedures that they put in place. The whole auditing process went very well. There was very few adjustments at all, which is a significant improvement over the past few years. So we do believe that there should be kudos to them, because I do know that they worked very hard to rectify some of those issues. But there still obviously is a long way to go. I don't want to diminish that, but it's nice to see some improvement that's made.
Ms. Keller, we have a question from Mr. Mitchell. Maybe we'll go to Ms. Keller.
Yes, Mr. Johnson and Public Food Service Manager. I know that we installed terminals and we have purchased point-of-sale software and computers. Right? Is that equipment still in use? Designed to reduce the paperwork and also the misinformation on meal counts. Are we still utilizing that system, or is it in need of upgrade?
We purchased a new system approximately a year and a half ago, and it's in place and operational in most of our schools. I believe there are 1, possibly 2 schools yet. We're still working out some challenges with it. It's operational in most buildings.
So what do we commend the point of service or point of sales that is indicated here that we need to address?
The point of sale system was not in operation for the part last year. So the issue that we need to address is we need to have the point of sale system collect the data at the point of sale, obviously, and that will make our meal counts more accurate. There was an issue with the accuracy of meal counts at, I believe, one school tested last in September.
And so currently there They're doing it by manual, by hand.
It was at the school tested for that run.
So we're in the process of upgrading all of our buildings, so it will be ours.
That's correct, that's it.
Yes, when you go do your auditing, do you take a look at IFT and CTE school operating tax analysis? Because we received a statement indicating that we were paid in error from City of Van Herber, they sent the money to us instead of the state. Looks like it was for 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, totaling $689,714.22. So I was wondering, I was like, we get audited every year.
Right.
How was that missed?
So, so an IFT, I don't know how familiar you are with that. So we do testing on what risk-based auditing on an analytical basis. So an IFT is where a company would come into town. Whirlpool would be a great example where they say, we're going to build this building, we're going to bring in this new business, and in return, whatever taxing jurisdiction they're in, they're going to reduce the amount of taxes that they're going to have to pay. The problem becomes when it's done incorrectly the first year, and then you kind of do things on an analytical basis, there's no change. Everything kind of looks like it's in line. So when the school district, when a new building comes to town and a school district gets taxes for that, that would be a normal procedure that would happen. So the school district would have to know, for example, that that whatever business was got the IFT. There is actually been new accounting pronouncements related to that. So now we have to disclose that type of information. So that came into effect this year. And if you look at page 33, it does talk about, it says the district's property tax revenues were reduced by approximately $388,000. So the Governmental Accounting Standards Board felt like this was something that was going on in more than just Benton Harbor, these kinds of errors. And so we are now required to get that information and disclose that to you. So you as the taxpayer know what you're, because as a school district, you have no, you just have to go along with it. You would have no say in whether or not a company gets an IFT, but the taxpayer can have a little bit more say at the, city of Benton Harbor or wherever your jurisdiction is. So, but yes, we were made aware of that. There's also some disclosure to that effect in the footnotes that you were working with the state to try to get that forgiven, and I don't believe that was approved. So it is. So yeah.
Mrs. Molly, Ms.
On page 17, internal control, written federal procedures, it says that the district has no established written policies that it follows with regards to federal grant compliance. So is that something we need to do?
Yes, and Scott is aware, and they have been working on it. It's a very it's a complex document, it can be, needs to address specifically in writing the compliance areas that apply to various programs and what exactly the district does in each of these areas to assure that they are complying with federal requirements. So it's been in development. It just wasn't updated for for the year we audited. So we anticipate.
Is that common occurrence that the districts don't have policies?
It is common, not necessarily common, but it's been the focus of the federal government much more strongly in the last 2 to 3 years, possibly, that they really said you've got to have this in writing. You need to update this every year. So we have had more of this finding, absolutely, yes.
So looking at page 21 of the the finding, is that related to 17 and or is that then going back to is the major issue been with a school nutrition program, or is it more broad, or is the issue broader than just the?
On page 21, the 2016-008 finding, we did repeat for 2017. That's 2017-002. That particular finding is not a nutrition finding, so to speak. That's more of an overall document that focuses on all the internal controls that go on. So that is not specific to any program.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any other questions as you're reviewing this information, our contact information is on one of the letters. You are welcome to contact me at any time through email, or Scott has that information as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, so Mr. Johnson, I think already read the staff report number 1.
Yes, and the recommended action is that the Ben Harbor Schools Board of Education votes to accept the 2017 audit report from Hungerford Nichols.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 1? Moved by trustee Gass, may I have a second?
Support.
Supported by trustee Martha Momini. Any questions, comments, concerns on staff report number 1, Mrs. Momini? Or you just, I saw your name. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lisa Gomez.
Yes.
Margaret Dad.
Yes.
Martha Mommy.
Yes.
Angelica McDonald.
Yes.
Marla Seek, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Joseph Taylor.
Yes. Staff report number 1 passes. Staff report number 2, monthly financial report, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Reason for board consideration, a set of financial reports is prepared for the Board of Education each month. This evening, it's recommended that the payments for all the district's funds be approved for the month of August. Policy reference is 6470, and recommended action is that the Ben Harbor Schools Board of Education votes to approve the payments as listed.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 2? Moved by trustee Gass, may I have a second? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Questions, comments, concerns for staff report number 2? Ms. Mitchell.
In your absence last week, Mr. Johnson, I was unable to get an answer to the question that I had, but in your check register, check number 1949. You want to do that? It's under capital projects.
$2,007 or 2017, please. Oh, I'll look at the check.
Check, please. The vendor's name is Wolford Electric. In the amount of $4,665. Could you tell me what that work was for?
I can verify, I'm sure it's probably for the completion of the computer lab, either at Dream Academy or at ACA. We did a modification to ACA early this year, and then we completed the modifications at Dream for the installation of the computer lab to expand the services to meet the testing needs. Wolford Electric was the electric company that provided the best cost to provide those services.
Where is Wolford located?
Find out. Dowagiac, Michigan is where their primary location is.
The question is, out of all of the electrical companies in 49022 area and that are taxpayers to this district, why was it necessary to go to the Dowagiac to get them in? And if the quotes were solicited from local companies, I'd like to see those quotes, please.
We can provide that. The ones that we did receive back, electric companies in the area have been informing us for quite some time that they are overbooked. And one of the problems was we were trying to move forward with this. So we solicited out to a number of different electric suppliers in the area and asked for proposals on what it would take to complete the work. So I'll share that.
Yes, I need to see this. I've received too many calls from local electrical companies indicating that they were not given a chance on this work, and they pay taxes.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Regarding staff report number 2. Secretary.
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Marlette Seats, yes. Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Martha Momedy.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Bell.
Yes.
Staff report number 2 passes. Staff report number 3, summer tax resolution.
Thank you. Reason for board consideration, summer tax collection is essential for the district's cash flow needs. Facts and analysis. On October 21, 1985, the Michigan Court of Appeals ruled that if a school board has adopted an ongoing resolution establishing summer tax collection, the board is required to take official action before January 1 each year to invoke the previously adopted resolution. An attorney from the True Law Firm has prepared the attached resolution for this purpose. This resolution acknowledges the previous decision to levy summer taxes on an ongoing basis. The resolution specifically invokes that resolution and it requests the levy of summer taxes next year. There's no policy reference, and the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve as presented the summer tax resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 3? Moved by trustee Martha Momedy. May I have a support? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 3? Ms. Leeds.
Lisa Gully.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Martha Momedy.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Marlette Seats, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Joseph Taylor.
Yes. Staff report number 3 passes. Staff report number 4, bank depository and agent resolution. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Reason for board consideration, banks require a list of board-approved signers for the district's bank accounts. Facts analysis, the bank deposit and agent's resolution approved during the past several months have included the district's now former consent agreement consultant as one of the approved signatories. With the recent conclusion of his services in Benton Harbor Area Schools, a treasury representative has requested that the signatory approval be transferred to Mr. Paul Connors, Director of the Michigan Department of Treasury's Office of School Review and Fiscal Accountability. There's no policy reference. Recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve as presented the updated bank depository and agents resolution.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 4?
So
Moved by Angelica McGowan. May I have support? Supported by Vice President Mitchell. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 4? I have a question, Mr. Johnson. So if, for example, we hire another person for your position, then we'll have to come back and take you off. next month. Okay? I just want us to be aware of that, right? Okay. Madam Secretary?
Joseph Taylor,
Yes.
Steve Mitchell. Yes. Marletta Seats, yes. Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Mark Ramamani.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Go.
Yes.
Staff report number 4 passes. Staff report number 5, human resources. Mrs. Adams.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Subject is employment of instructional staff. Reason for board consideration. The board must vote to approve the employment of the following instructional staff in accordance with the revised school code and other general laws of Michigan. Facts and analysis. We have 2 teachers we're looking to place at MLK, Swan Young Horn, 4th grade teacher, and then Crystal Willis, a 3rd grade teacher. Regarding Ms. Willis, I want to remind you about her memo in that was documented that she has a valid Indiana license, that she's in the process of transferring to Michigan. Did some checking today to see where she is in the status of that, and it's still in the process. She's done everything that she needs to do in terms of showing the fee and the requirements, and they are waiting on paperwork from the schools that she's worked at previously. Wanted to make you aware of that, and also to request that you do approve her employment contingent upon the final transfer of her license from Indiana to Michigan. I'd be happy to work back to the board when that is final. She can currently teach under a sub permit in the meantime, but due to the dire need at MLK, and just the fact that she would be in another district, would like to give her back. That out there. Then the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the employment of the aforementioned instructional staff.
Thank you. We have a motion for the approval of staff report number 5.
So moved.
Moved by Mark Ramani. May I have support? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments on staff report 5? Ms. McGowan?
Until her paperwork has come over, she's still going to be paid sub pay. And then she switches to regular teacher pay when we have her paperwork.
What I'm asking is that we still issue a contract with the contingency that she will get her license switched over. I do not believe that she would still accept and come.
Ms. Gass?
I'm very comfortable with that. My question is, that's not in our motion. Do we need to amend?
The report?
Yeah, in the report, do we need to amend that, making it contingent upon her?
Getting her license in the state of Michigan.
I think we can do that. I can kind of make maybe staff report 5A and 5B, separate them and put that in the recommended action. Is that something that be perfect? Okay. You put second to do that?
This is bonding.
Okay, I'm agreeing with everything. I'm just curious, what is our timeline for her to receive this? And I know some of this is out of her control.
Right.
But I also don't want to see it go on and then find out in the school year she's still operating on a sub permit.
Right, right. And I agree with you completely on that. I'm not sure what's typical with MBE. I would have to call again just to get a better estimate so that would be on her contract by January 1, whatever date would be feasible and reasonable.
Yeah, we definitely need teachers.
And I can remember we had a assistant superintendent who came here from Ohio. I forgot the lady's name. And so she had an Ohio certification, and then she had to get certified as well in the state of Michigan, same type of standards and that stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
so
in most states we said, right?
yeah. So we'll wait until the staff report is corrected, and then we'll vote.
All right, so 5A is going to be Ms. Horn. And then I am going to link 5B, which will be Ms. Willis.
So we can call the roll then for. Yeah, so this is, so if you would read it again when you finish thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if I could board 5A, staff report of employment of instructional staff, that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the employment of the aforementioned instructional staff named Tanya Horn.
Secretary?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Marletta Sings, yes. Angela McGowan.
Yes.
Martha Mama.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Geller.
Yes.
Okay, staff report number 5A passes.
You all see 5B now?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you just read staff reports 5B.
And so again, I'll read out to the recommendation. I'll read out to the recommended action by the time this passage should be ready to read the recommendation. Reason for consideration, the board was supposed to approve the employment of the following instructional staff in accordance with the revised school code of the general laws of Michigan. Ms. Crystal Willis, third grade teacher at MLK, whose certification is in process. We're going to ask the board to approve her contract on a contingent basis.
Everyone satisfied with that? Okay. Madam Secretary?
Lisa Geller.
So this was just these, it was being corrected, Crystal Willis, third grade teacher at MLK.
Oh, the thing you were just talking about. Oh, okay. No.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Margaret Mama.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Marletta Sings, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Joseph Taylor.
Yes, staff report number 5A, 5B passes. Staff report number 6, employment of paraprofessional staff.
Reason for board consideration, the board must vote to approve the employment of the following, this should be paraprofessional staff in accordance with the revised school code and other general laws of Michigan. Facts and analysis. We have Shaniqua Davis, paraprofessional at International Academy at Fall. The recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the employment of the aforementioned paraprofessional staff.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 6? Moved by trustee Gass. May I have support?
Support.
Supported by Angelica McGowan. Questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 6? Secretary?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Marletta Sings, yes. Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Martha Mama.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Geller.
Yes.
Staff report number 6 passes. Staff report number 7.
Staff report number 7 is resignation of instructional staff. Reason for board consideration, the board must vote to accept the resignations of the instructional staff. Facts and analysis, we have Andrea Large, who was a music teacher at MLK. This was her first school year with us, and she started August 28th, and her exit interview has been completed. Is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to accept the resignation of the aforementioned staff member, that a letter is sent thanking her for her service to the students in the district of Benton Harbor Area Schools.
A motion for the approval of staff report number 7. Moved by trustee Martha Momedy. May I have support? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 7? Ms.
Lisa Geller.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Martha Motley,
Yes.
Angela McGowan,
Yes.
Marlene Seas, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Joseph Taylor.
Yes. Staff report number 7 passes. Staff report number 8.
All right, staff report 8, employment of administrative staff, reason for board consideration. On August 23rd, the board voted the employment of Brian Scoggin. However, his employment memo had an incorrect salary. One number was off. There is an updated memo linked to this agenda and also presented at the November 7th work session. And the board must vote to approve the corrected salary. So facts and analysis, Brian Scoggin working as the Director of Curriculum and Instruction. And the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the corrected salary, which is shown on the attached memo. And Brian Scoggin, for administrative staff.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 8?
So
Moved by Angelica McGowan. May I have support? Supported by Ms. Gass. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 8? Ms. Seas?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell.
Yes.
Marlene Seas, yes. Angelica McGowan,
yes.
Martha Motley,
Yes.
Margaret Gass,
Yes.
Lisa Go.
No.
Staff report number 8 passes. Staff report number 9, Mr. Leonard, facilities, operations, snow removal services, RFP memo. About staff report number 8. It's on the report. So this is just information for the board right now?
Information.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can, so you have an employment memo of Carolyn Gibbs, who has been selected for the Executive Director of Finance Operations, pending your approval. Her memo is here. We will be requesting a vote, I think, at your special board meeting on Saturday. Her resume is also attached.
Dr. Walker?
What I'd like to speak to the board about is, because we're at the end of November, we have 3 big reports or documents that are due, and determining if it would be in her best interest to experience those with Scott, because they only come around once a year. So the financial operating plan, the grants, and the budget revision, I believe, are the 3 big reports that are all due by November 30th. So this would give her an opportunity to work with Scott on those annual reports.
Any questions about that coming on the agenda for Saturday? Is that okay with the board? Okay. Mr. Johnson, staff report number 9, snow removal services RFP memo.
The reason for recommending snow removal services bid award, the reason for board consideration is recommended the board award the bids for snow removal services to guarantee access to qualified snow removal service providers before winter begins. Facts and analysis, the district issued a formal request for proposals or RFP to secure such proposals from professional snow removal service providers to attend to the snow removal needs of the Benton Harbor area schools occupied active facilities and the unoccupied inactive facilities during the 2017-2018 winter season. Proposals were reviewed for alignment with bid specifications and price competitiveness. The district review team recommends that the bid for the occupied facilities be awarded to CR Long Services Incorporated because their proposal was the most competitively priced in response to the RFP for these sites. The district review team also recommends that the bid for the unoccupied facilities be awarded to Mosaic Property Services because their proposal was the most competitive price and responsive to the RFP for those sites. Policy reference 6320 on purchasing, the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education, sorry, I'm on medication, votes to award the bid for snow removal services to CR1 Services Incorporated for the occupied facilities, and to award the bid for snow removal services to Mosaic Property Services for the unoccupied facility for the 2017-18 snow season as specified in the October 25th, 2017 proposals.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 9?
So moved.
Moved by Martha Lonnie, may I have support? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 9? Mrs. Lonnie.
Just update on this, it says like cost per plow through the south application, and then cost for additional south application. So that's if they have to come back anymore?
Yes, during discussions, Scott and I identified that there could be an opportunity where, or a time when we would just need a salt application. If we had a deep freeze after a thaw, where it's strictly salt, it doesn't need to be replowed. So we reached back out to find out what the cost would be for a straight salt application.
Okay,
Yes, after reading the RFP, I certainly thought we were going out to bid for plowing O'Hare Airport or Detroit Metro. It was thoroughly over the bounds for 10 buildings and 10 unoccupied buildings. I don't think that we should get into the business of cherry picking who bids and RFPs go out to. That the simplest way would have been to put it in the paper, in the legals, and let all area people have an opportunity to submit a bid. And looking at the insurance qualifications, it was totally cumbersome. And the fact of the matter is that what they do only complies with coverage for liability insurance. So everything that was asked for was quite extensive. And my thinking is on the unoccupied buildings, we have a truck available and a plow available. That should be held within the house and not bid it out at $750 per usage. So I would like to see it put in the legals and let everyone within the tax-paying area have an opportunity to submit a bid.
I would like to know if the two people that were awarded the bid, aren't they one and the same?
No, they're
Two different entities. Okay, one of the other concerns was that in this paragraph, it says removal RFP posting was also sent to local snow removal providers drawn from the online yellow pages. That's snow removal services provided. Is that the normal process that this district has followed in the past by going online in the yellow pages? And was that a desperate move?
No, it wasn't
A normal.
Specifically, the rationale for that was we followed the standard protocol. We did the bid for Michigan as well as a posting on the public website, the Benton Harbor Area School website, which is standard for what we've done historically since I've been in the district. The additional was in response to concerns that were discussed or expressed related to making sure that local providers knew. So I reached out to as many as were available, that we could find contact information to make them aware that we had posted a RFP that was available both from the Michigan for-bid site as well as on the Benton Harbor Area School site. So the intent was to get the information out to as many people as possible. As a number of the contracting firms do talk, and it's a common understanding that they do, to make them aware that RFP was out there and available for their access if they so chose. Out of the ones that were able to be contacted, we did have a number that actually did respond. I gave you guys the information on that. It's on an additional sheet added that at least called to find out clarification on where to access the RFP. We gave them guidance to that, no more than we would anybody else calling for information on any type of proposal that we put forth for request for proposals.
So there was only 2 bidders out of all of your intent to notify people, correct?
There were only 2 bidders out of all the people that are notified. Yep.
And do you think that 5% bid bond had anything to do with it? For those who didn't know what a bid bond is, a company would have to put up 5% cash or surety in order to bid. So if there's a $100,000 contract, they would have to come up with $5,000 cash just to bid.
And is that your normal practice?
No.
Trustee?
That's the normal practice we employ. Yes.
Over 30 years, that was never in there, because you just send the check back to the bidder as soon as they sign the contract. And that puts a burden on the average person who plows snow. That's not fair.
Mrs. Bowman.
Just a little clarification, Mr. Mitchell mentioned using our own trucks to do the fire lane service only, and that was $750. Am I under the wrong impression that the staff report is asking that we give that to Mosaic at $370?
There was 2 different.
Yeah, that Mosaic would do the unoccupied?
Yes, Mosaic.
Okay, so then that would cost $370 as versus the 750. That's what's on the list. Okay, I was, yeah,
If you look in your vehicle inventory sheet, what they want to sell or lease, there is a truck available that has plowing capability that we own. Why would we bid out that service for a fire lane?
Mrs. McGowan, Ms. McGowan.
Who in the district would qualify to do our plowing?
No currently have any employees specified for that reason, but we could always consider hiring someone.
Well, that's a cost.
Yes, staff that would do.
What kind of staff do you have to do the plowing? Because our maintenance is all CSM, right? And I don't know, is that's involved in their contract or not, or whatever.
I have to refer back to the RFP to verify whether or not that was specified as a criteria for snow plowing.
I think where I'm at is that, to Mr. Mitchell's point, if it wasn't fair to all concerned, we gotta make sure it's fair to all concerned, right? Because we live in a small town, a small area, and we wanna make sure that our taxpayers are getting the benefit of the dollar when they get a chance to bid. So really, I would definitely put it in the Herald Lady, even if I put it on the website, right? Because if you look at anything in the legals, it could be Lakeshore, whomever, they got it in the legals. So that, we could reach more people, and then that bid bond, that's a poor person who's just got a plow truck, they can't afford $5,000. Because normally, if I just had a plow truck, I can hire Trustee Gully with a plow truck to plow another, with the bid. I can hire Mrs. Momini. And so then I can do that, right? And so just the average guy can bid. So I'm saying I don't want to see this bid agreed upon. I'd rather see it go back out to the public with a certain amount of time, since we know snow is upon us, right? To give people the opportunity to bid. Yes, ma'am.
So if we don't vote on this, if they snow, what are our options to make sure we follow that?
I think the school can call the snowplow company. There's a plow for that time.
Might be.
A lot of people.
Yeah, well, my concern is, Bonnie, I think that who would you get, would they have the insurance? And do they have other jobs that they're already working on? Would we be not a priority? Just something to look at. I don't want to see any injuries or harm come to people because we weren't able to get things plowed in time.
This, if the board, wishes, this can hit the legals by the end of the week, run it twice, and then we have to bid it and go special meetings.
how many days do we have to, I mean, what time span are we looking at? We wanted to complete that process. What is the minimum number of days that it would take to do that?
I think that, call Errol Blake tomorrow, we'll get an ad in, right? To Mr. Mitchell's point by probably Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, maybe you bid on it Wednesday.
Have to be like, for some reason, 10 days is sticking in my mind. We have to have like a, no, okay, I want to make sure. My 10 days must be sticking from something else.
Now I'm looking at the weather. Trying to see what it's looking like for the month
Yeah, what does it look
of
like?
November into December, so Ms. Momedy is satisfied. Doesn't look like any snowstorms and blizzards are coming our way. However, there will be temperatures in the 30s. So hopefully the heat will be adequate because that should have been more major than anything talking about this, but I agree with Mr. Mitchell with putting the bid back out there, but I see 50s all the way into the end until 12/2. So unless you do your snow dance and pray for snow and hazardous conditions, I think we'll be good.
So we would need a motion to rebid.
I make a motion that we rebid the snow plowing contract and eliminate the 5% bid route requirement.
Second. Or,
Secretary.
Because I don't have a, base.
Oh.
No, this will go under staff report number 9 as to vote down the original. Okay, so this vote is to vote it down and to rebid. So when I'm putting it in, so everybody's clear with what I'm doing here. This is not to accept the motion for staff report. Mr. Dollar,
So, okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow.
this is to rebid and not to accept, so the motion would be to, you'd have to vote down this motion. It would be a no, and then that would,
So I'm voting to not accept this motion.
correct.
And do I agree to not accept?
And then that vote automatically goes to rebid, because if you're voting it down, it's automatic to rebid. With the stipulations.
So, okay.
So if you say no, and that is.
Okay, no.
You're not accepting this particular staff report.
I'm not accepting.
Is there a
the
question?
report
Because if
being
it's not, it's correct.
Mosaic and, CR lawn care.
Margaret Gass,
Okay, the vote.
Margaret Momney, to accept or not to accept the staff report that we have. That was the first motion.
Okay, that's fine. Phew, I think it's a
And then
no.
Okay, Angelique McGowan, Marletta Seats, no. Stephen Mitchell, no. Joseph Taylor, no. And now, do we have to, vote the other motion? We have a motion, and that would be, staff report 9A. Thank you, Susan. Joseph Taylor,
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Marletta Seats, yes. Angelica McDowell.
Yes.
Margaret Momney.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Della.
Yes.
Okay, staff report number 9 fails, staff report number 9 passes, staff report number 10, school finance research collaboration.
Thank you. The School Finance Research Collaborative, the board has been asked by middle cities to support the School Finance Collaborative, which will focus on equity of funding in public schools education. The prior study of education and equity in Michigan was conducted, and like many state constituents concerned that equity for all students in Michigan was still unresolved. Therefore, the Oakland School District has accepted the opportunity to lead those school districts in the state of Michigan interested in further investigating equity and has asked the little cities that the Benton Harbor Board of Education support those efforts by signing the resolution. And the policy reference is 0130 functions. So the recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to support the resolution for Middle Cities on behalf of the School Finance Research Collaborative and its efforts to determine the true cost of educating all Michigan public school students from pre-K to 12.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 10? Moved by Ms. Gass, may I have a second? Supported by Mr. Mitchell. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 10? Madam Secretary?
Lisa Gully,
Yes.
Margaret Gass. Yes. Martha Momney.
Yes.
Angelica McGowan. Marletta Seats, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Joseph Taylor.
Yes. Staff report number 10 passes. Staff report number 11, Neola policies.
Thank you. The new and updated Neola policy adoptions for the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education to approve the fall 2017 updated policies. We need your approval. Facts and analysis are periodically, the Board of Education will act to update Neola policies. In some cases, the board may choose varying options within a policy. The updated and new policies being brought to the board at this time exhibit notations of suggested language made by the administration and the board, policy committee of the board. Administration, 1421 pages 1 through 5, which is the new policy, 1439, which is also new. Under program, 2410, 2414, 2418. Under professional staff, 3121 and 3139. 4121, 4139. Under students, 5630.01. Under property, 7540.03, 7540.04, 05, and 06. Under operations, 8142 and 8321. Board policy reference is 0131.1, bylaws and policies. The recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the Benton Harbor Area Schools new and updated Neola policies as presented.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 11? Moved by trustee Martha Momney, supported by Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 11? Madam Secretary?
Joseph Taylor.
Yes.
Stephen Mitchell. Yes. Marletta Seats, yes. Angelica McGowan.
Yes.
Martha Momney.
Yes.
Margaret Gass.
Yes.
Lisa Gully.
Yes.
Staff report number 11 passes. Staff report number 12.
Thank you. ACA of June 4, naming rights approved for branding of school property must occur by action of the board. All gifts, grants, or requests having a value more than $2,500 may be accepted by the board. Facts and analysis, Wilson Chandler is interested in resurfacing the June 4 ACA. He would also like to grant the floor with his name. Policies reference 7230 and 7250. Recommended action that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to accept the donation from Wilson Chandler in the form of resurfacing the June 4 ACA, as well as approving the branding of the floor with his name, so long as the resurfacing does not occur during the school year.
Thank you. May I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 12? Moved by Martha Momney, may I have support? Supported by Angelica McGowan. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding staff report number 12?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe that during the workshop, we did talk about taking the December 5th, 2017 date out. We did not have a problem with the naming rights. We had a problem with the completion. And under the donated funds, it still states the donated funds are to be used by the district specific purpose of resurfacing the ACA gym floor. Resurfacing the ACA gym floor will be will commence and be completed on or before December 5th. I do believe that a board trustee did talk to Mr. Chandler's staff member, and he did not have a problem with the time frame. And so, again, we did ask that this be changed, and that's my.
Thank you. So, Dr. Walker, Secretary Cease is correct that Jay is still here. Right, so we need to make sure that that's corrected in the record. Is that okay with the board? I see. Is that okay?
Oh. Yeah, because the motion needs to reflect further changes.
Gotcha.
Because this right here can be fine.
Okay.
So I think since he did say it's not a problem, I think we should consider this.
Ms. Gass?
Could you read the motion back? Because my understanding was this, the motion now is that we will accept the gift and the request for naming, as long as it's not done during the school year, the whole school year. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Cease?
Lisa Hill,
Yes.
Margaret Gass,
Yes.
Martha Momney,
Yes.
Angelique McGowan,
Yes.
Arletta Cease, yes. Stephen Mitchell,
Yes.
Joseph Taylor.
Yes, staff report number 12 passes. Title Pulse Dashboard. I think Dr. Walker was trying to get this to work in the work session.
Okay, thank you. Again, just wanted to share with the school board an option that would allow Windsor Park area schools to actually lead the state and the ability to acquire data. That's what's called real-time data around our students. So if you take a look at the screen, this is what's called a dashboard. And if you take a look at this dashboard, when you log in, which you couldn't see, and again, my computer won't, so I apologize, I couldn't show you, but when one logs into the system, so let's say as a school board member, you have access to this dashboard with rights to certain data. You can go in and get, you can look at information about the district in its real time. Anything from that day before throughout that current school year is updated every minute. So you have active, current, real live data. And again, depending on what you see for the board to view as an example versus if it's a building administrator who would see a different type of information, different dashboards, I'm sorry, but the same information. So across this top, these are all the areas, and every one of these drop downs demonstrates data. So when I click on the word, let me just start to show you. This first page is customized. This is what they call the sandbox, the company, to show you what the data looks like. And so let's say you came in and you wanted to see about school attendance, or if you wanted to see about students absent grade, this pie chart, this is grade 6, fourth grade, 22%. So again, the way the data is presented, pie charts, bar graphs, actual tables, I always make jokes and say you can always have like data overload because it's so much. So let me go into enrollment and click on that word. I want to see how when I click on that word. You're going to notice right away across the bottom, there are immediate information for you around enrollment. So you can look at different demographic populations of free and reduced, kids who are enrolled in Title 1, students who are in special education, and you can see if this were in our school district dashboard, it would show how many of our total population of students are free and reduced, how many of our total population of Title 1. And so again, every day as students come and go, as information changes, every day you can count this data being reflecting accurately what is in our system. There's no tool that we have that presents data in this manner currently. You can also, if we had a large ethnicity count, we don't. Our three big groups are African American, biracial, and Hispanic. And then we have some white students, but you would see a bar graph of 93% of our students are African American, 3% of our students are biracial, 2% are Hispanic, and 2% are white, excuse me. So you can see out of the population of numbers of students, this gives you instant information every day that you can follow. This particular graph down here talks about how many students are in each grade level on the particular day. So again, this dashboard is automatic, it's instant, you don't have to ask someone for data. You can come in and see how many kids are in fourth grade in the district, this tells you right away. I wonder how many kids are in 12th grade at this point, this tells you right away. So the concept behind the dashboard is immediate access to the data in current real time. Up here, all of these different areas are scrolled, you can see the change in the color. Those are all different dashboards. If you just wanted to know what are the students' birthdays, you know, the work the districts have to do, trying to find out who those kids are. You can come in and you can find out on that given date whose those birthdays are. If you wanted to search whose birthdays on December 25th, you can also search. The search process is extremely easy. It is what I call user-friendly. Excuse me. Same thing around, you know, discipline. We struggle with our discipline. We are aligning our processes and structures for this school year, as I've shared with you in the past. But again, once we get the data in there accurately, how do we get that data out? How do we make it current and relevant so we can use that? So let's say you wanted to take a look at, and of course, some of the stuff the board would access, right? Discipline by staff, meaning how many referrals they write because you get into mentioning students' names. But the district can track that. So this teacher, Aikens, as of that date that this data was made available, has written 12 referrals. You can also, what's nice about it in a dashboard, you can click on the name of that teacher and you can see the actual students those referrals were written on. And so it allows that administrative team to really start to address patterns of behavior with staff because the information is immediate, is updated every night. And again, I'm just scratching the surface on the magnitude of what this type of dashboard provides. We start talking about student grades. And again, remember, every time I click in here, all of these areas are different types of data that we would have available to look at, assuming we use that. So if we wanted to look at current grades, and you know, this would be restricted to those people who should have access. But you can see when you come in, you can see the school the student attends, their student ID, their name, what grade they're in. Sorry, I'm sure what grade they're in. And then the period, and then it starts to show you their progress across the grades. So the point being that in a true data dashboard, the ability for a district to really look at individual students, if that's what you're looking at, or a group of students, if that's what you're looking at, is immediate, is constant, is current, and is up to date. So my intent was to just kind of share with the board, if you think about the scorecard that we've shown to you, is handmade. It uses an Excel spreadsheet. Data has to be pulled from a multitude of places and input so that we can have a dashboard. That Mrs. Robinson shared with you earlier, where you then start to analyze that data, then this just opens up the door extremely wide to our district's ability to access. You can do at least about assessments, so NWA, MSTEP, Ames, Web, any type of assessment we do as a district goes into the dashboard, and so when you click on whatever information you're looking for, and that information, but the information then comes up for you, and you can click on individual students. The dashboard will do your risk assessment for your most at-risk students based on the information. It will help you write your individualized plans that are going to have to be written on students because it gives you the context of the need. It will improve our PLCs where our staff are analyzing data because it's immediate, it's current, it's up to date. You don't have people trying to pull all that. Right now we have people that spend an inordinate amount of time trying to pull data together so the staff can analyze it. It's immediate, it's accessible. So again, just wanted to share with you what I call a true dashboard looks like. It adds so much value to the work of a district when that district is really an improvement. because your data is needed and it is readily available. It comes in multiple forms, and your parents can access it. You give them access to the system up to a certain level. The board has, they can be given rights, so there are stages of access that people can be given to that align with their job or align with their role as an district. So just wanted to share.
Question for Mr. Mitchell.
Superintendent, who would be responsible for the data on those?
So there's another hat to this, it's called a student information system. Currently we use Pulse. I'm so sorry. Currently we use Power School. The Pulse dashboard does talk to Power School. So the data input still falls in the district. How you get the data out of that system is what Pulse does, but I have found that the Tyler student information system is so much easier to use for staff as well. Pulse is complicated.
Our staff, teachers, administrators, they would be responsible for inputting.
A bunch of groups of people, depending on the work. So sometimes it might be the secretary, because they just live coding. It could be the principal around discipline, his teachers around virtual. That is a combination. It's about having your structures and processes in place and giving people guidance on what they should and what that looks like. And that's the piece that I said we work on.
Is that not one of the problems now?
Correct. That's what we're working on now, is aligning those processes and structures. My concern is we're going to get that part together and have those in place. But we still, so now we've got those in place. We have people in the process of like right now we're working on just entering attendance. As an example. Accurately entering attendance. What does that look like? What are the right attendance codes to use? What is student zero? Things. What is an absence type? What is an excuse versus an unexcused? What does that mean? What is stress and insurance letters? So we are working on that process as I'm speaking to you. Once that's in place, we are planning to start training the staff in December PDA, and in January, if we needed to start getting our secretaries to understand their role in that work, to getting our teachers to understand their role. So we have to build people's understanding of what that looks like and the expectation for them. So once you get those processes written, and then you train people on how to follow them, and then you monitor and hold them accountable to doing it, then that's when your data goes in correctly. And so then the next phase is getting it out of the system, and that's where Power School falls short.
Secretary Steve.
Tyler Pulse, is this the dashboard from St. Louis?
Tyler Pulse is out of Missouri, the Tyler system is out of Missouri.
What is the cost to the district?
There will be no cost to the district.
No cost to the district. Correct. What about the maintenance of the program? And why would we go out of the state versus working with Michigan? This is Michigan.
What I shared last week.
Yes.
Oh, we
Why
are.
would we go out of? I mean, could we not make the changes, or they could not make the necessary changes to the dashboard that you are expecting or looking for to accommodate the district versus going out of the state of Michigan?
So Tyler is a national company, just like Power School. Okay, it's never been introduced to Michigan, so I did connect Tyler with the Michigan. Thank you, Michigan Data Hub. And so I have connected them. Michigan Data Hub was excited about that connection. But they will tell me they're nowhere near here. IDEX is nowhere near here. So instead of waiting for a system to catch up, and there's one available, there's no boundary on where a student information system comes from. You've got Power School, you've got East School, that's how there are a bunch of student information systems. And districts can pick the information system that they would like. It just happens that in Michigan, Berrien County, there are districts that use Power School. In St. Louis, Power School is used. I came from the district that use Power School. So the student information system, those are national systems. But this is the type of data output that I know we need to answer a lot of your questions, to be progressive in terms of really getting to using data to drive our decisions, our instruction, and everything. This is a system that's already in place that will help us.
So if you've got a system like this up and running, Is there an area that's also tracking individual students?
When you say is there an area?
Yeah, like each student would have a file in the system.
So in any student information system, I would say yes, it functions like that. Every student has data that follows them. And so like when you think about Power School, you know, the way that the information on Tom Brown, all of his attendance records are in his system, right? Following him, all of his discipline record, you know, all of his, well, it depends on the system. Some systems will even track their paperwork. I mean, they're all varying what they can do. So if I'm understanding you, yes.
So you know where I'm going with this?
No, not yet. No, sorry.
Okay. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking about HIPAA and, the huge, that was a huge surge change in this country. So I'm thinking about this kind of a system, which means, number one, your records are more protected, but also you could automatically send them electronically. So I'm thinking, is that the direction we're going? And again, we've got a national system on the healthcare. Is Michigan or any state developing a system within their state so that you can easily transfer records, at least within the state? Or is this just it? So that's just sort of a pie in the sky. I'm asking.
Yeah. So
where's data technology going?
Right, so at the conference that I attended, they were trying to get to this level, and again, they really talked about it, discussed it. I was surprised, as I shared last week, because I didn't know where, the state of Michigan was in their acquisition for data. I just knew there was a hole, I couldn't figure it out until I went to the conference. So Michigan is a starter, and that's why when I introduced the gentleman from the data hub to this, he was very excited. This is what they're starting to get to. And they have been at it for 5 years, but they were approaching it differently. Their approach was, a district uses, different entities, as I showed you last week, to track different information. And then what the data hub wants to do is create a central spot where all these entities' information dumps in, so that that district can then go to this spot and get all their information across all these entities. That's what they're hopeful to do, but it's still going to be what I call stagnant data, meaning that once it goes in, until it refreshes again, or it's updated in these systems, and then it has to refresh in this system, and then when you go in, that's what it was on that day, and you can't go back and look at prior days, you can't, be in the moment. This type of a dashboard is current and it's relevant. So that's part of it. To your question, partly, yes, there are states that have created a system, a statewide system of data collection. So then you have at the district level, the student information system that that district uses, they input all the data. Then the data is extracted in a purposeful way, whether they use a pulse or some other system that then feeds the state. So there are states that have aligned all of that. And so Michigan's not one of those states.
Go ahead. I recall back in July, it was like 22nd or the 23rd, we had our meeting. Yeah, I remember that meeting. It was stated that the secretaries weren't trained in our school, that it was inaccurate. I'm wondering how long is that going to be the story, and when are they going to be scheduled for training to get updated in Power School? Because if we can't get Power School down pat, how are we going to implement another technology that needs training and impose that on people who don't even know how to use the tool to fuel that actual product? I mean, how hard is it to train secretaries on Power School when this has been in place for quite some time now? I'm hearing so many excuses that just sound like excuses and reasons to spend more money on top of undone. We're spending money on top of undone processes. This is undone, this is a process that needs to be done and done. So we're going to implement another process to correct this process, but that process hasn't even been mastered yet. Because I'm looking at like Detroit, they was able to have their student count in an article the next day after October the 4th. They knew they student count. Now we got to get a tool and get trained just to get some numbers in a district you don't even have They have 48,000 students. We got what? Not even 3,000, 2,100, 2,200. I don't even know the accurate count. We keep on getting three different numbers, so I'm not for sure. How long is it gonna take for the necessary people to get trained in the necessary areas? How long is it gonna take? July 23rd, so that means the summer they wasn't trained, so that means before school ended last year, they weren't trained. What's the timeline on that?
So as I shared with the board, you have to have a process, and that has to be clearly determined as to what it is. So we have different certificates across the district using Power School in different ways. And so in order to understand that process, as you go back to the partnership agreement, you see it as an line item that by December, we're going to start with the attendance discipline piece. We have developed what that should look like. We're working on that process, and as I stated in December, that training will start. The nice thing about that type of a situation, once you have your process clearly identified, you use that same process regardless of your system. So our issue is the Power School piece is the Power School piece. Our systems were not allowing us to be consistent in our entry of the data. So depending on who you are, from what, how to do what, is how you did work. And so what we get is whatever's gotten in there. It's not aligned, it's not consistent. And so in order to provide that type of consistency, you have to ensure what that process looks like. And, functions at the case will look different on how functions at the 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. So by having someone go in, meet with the secretary, start to find out how do you sign for them, how do you get that information to make sure you're tracking kids that you know they're going. How do you then work with teachers on how they're ready for that day, and there's a sub, and you track that attendance. There are a lot of moving parts just around attendance alone. And so in order to train people, you want to make sure you train them on a viable process. So we have been working on what that process needs to look like in Benton Harbor into the Power School system. But whether it's Power School or Tyler B School, those pieces don't matter. It's what those systems can do for the district. And unlike the Tyler type of a system, your Power School, your E-School, things like that, they don't offer the dashboard. It's just a unique product to Tyler.
Not that hard, I think. It's not that hard.
I'm sorry, I disagree. We want to be accurate, and we want to make sure the data is accurate.
It's not that hard. Thank you.
Thank you.
But you have to come in and do it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the Title Pulse dashboard? Okay, Ms. Gina, technology.
So you have before you the November board update for IT. I don't know if you have any questions. I won't reiterate the facts that are there. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
I just have a question. So when you close the tickets, is the school due, or is that just?
Yes, we did. Those are closed tickets in school due.
So when you came before the board with the proposal on purchasing the Chromebooks, what did you tell us at that time where the funding was going to come from?
The funding from the Chromebooks came from Title.
Title?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think last week, in your absence, we asked that question, one of us here, and the acronym was CRM. They said that was for the Chromebooks?
Could be. That could be a shortened piece if it was used in a description. I don't know what it was referencing.
That was in a check, in our check, original receipts for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman there was here. He said that was for the Chromebooks.
Oh, is that the check to Presidio?
Yeah, you were asking about Presidio last week.
Yeah, Presidio is the Dell dealer that we buy Dell Chromebooks or laptops or any Dell product through.
CRM acronym. Presidio?
No, CRM would probably be a shortened version of a description for Chromebooks.
Okay. What I checked was written out of the safety fund pot, And if it came out of the title, should have come from a different pot. And that's my question.
That would be a Mr. Johnson
I
question.
know that you can use sinking fund monies for technology, but I thought when you came before us, you said that funding source was out of title.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so, Mr. Johnson.
I'll be happy to look at that and see where it was funded, which account was funded. With the recently approved sinking fund millage, the district does have the flexibility to purchase some technology with the new sinking fund.
Yes, I acknowledge that. But my question was, when levels came before us, it was coming out of the pilot. And then it seems as though it was switched to sinking fund, and none of us knew that.
I'll be happy to check.
Thank you, Ray.
Any other questions for Ms. Lovelace? Mrs. Lovelace? Thank you.
Thank you.
Facilities, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you. Document you have before you kind of gives a summary of a number of different activities that we're currently involved in the Facilities and Operations Office. Working through the heating system issues and getting those control issues to the next level of engagement in that process. We did a lot of collaboration with IT to make sure the communication systems are in place and functioning. On the ground level, say, we're preparing with CSM staff for basic entranceway management, things of that nature. Once the snow does come, salting purposes and everything else. We had some food service equipment that was delivered that was reported last month. The installation is pretty much all completed with that, except one facility where we ran into some complications. We're working with Sodexo right now, getting that resolved. Some updates on the safety grant, CTE antenna, some upgrades in relation to CTE. Actually, two things going on in the CTE program. One related to the antenna replacement. And work with WIRX engineer, Mr. Terry Green, as well as some remodeling efforts, the CTE instructional staff that we have done in conjunction with Jose Turner's plans for expansion of that program. In transportation, whose first student is working right now. I'm looking at potentially upgrading to some digital communications is consistent with what the district is moving forward to a radio communications that are being funded through the Safety and Secure grant. We also have some plans that will be being brought forth in the not too distant future, which should be in this month, regarding the structural changes to be considered with the recommendations on what should be done, utilizing those funds to enhance the security of the entranceways and functionality of the entranceways at each one of our occupied facilities. Any other questions?
Ms. East?
Yes, a question on the Mr. Turner, and a review of the plans and verification to support a project that he's looking at. Is that program up and running? I mean, is the media studio and everything running? And what expansion would be necessary now, and how long ago before that money was invested into that studio? That was a combination of questions, but what is he looking at? What is he looking to do? Because I know a lot of money had been invested not that long ago into the studio.
In relation to the radio, the only thing that's going on from the construction side, in relation to the radio, is the antenna that was blown off the roof here in the high school. And Mr. Turner reached out and had a conversation with Mr. Green, because they worked with them. There's a history there. I'm not sure details of it all in relation to supporting that program, the radio broadcasting program. And so he is assisting us with the replacement and reinstallation of that unit atop the Department High School.
Okay, because I believe that radio station is not operative. And I believe that's going to be have to be through the FCC reinitiated. So the antenna was blown off, and it is planning to be used before we extend those expenses.
And would be used any for the instructional side?
Yes,
Assuming the
that's
CTE program.
We lost the FCC, I mean, it's sitting there. It is a dead station that is sitting there. If you're gonna invest money in the antenna, is there a guarantee that the radio station is gonna be used for the students and in the Benton Harbor area?
That would be something outside the scope of my realm.
I would say that from my research, the FCC gives you a list of all the dead stations around the country. But that doesn't mean FCC took our license. So,
no, I didn't say that.
Right, so
I know it's a dead station.
So all we have to do is put the antenna up, turn it on, and you got a radio station. I mean, so the
I
FCC
think
has to
so
stop
my
that.
question is it going to be utilized to the maximum that the intent of having that station can be used for the students? I mean, the station should be used for various things in the community. So it's not just about it being put back up, but it's about how is it going to be maximized so that we get the best benefit out of having a radio station in our facility.
I agree with trustee Seats. Does Mr. Turner know how to operate the radio station? Has he been trained in that area? Because it hasn't even, when it was on air, it was like it was a tape rotating and playing at all times, just old school cuts. If you wanted to just listen to continuous music, you could just tune in there, and it was like, no commercials, no commercials. We were supposed to be exposed to the Channel 98 station because we inherited all of that from the city of Benton Harbor. They really want the radio station back. You know, we're not going to use it. So, and kids are interested in that area. So, I mean, everybody nodding their head, but ain't nobody doing nothing. Don't hold nobody accountable for that. You know what I'm saying? So, we have asked about this before, and it was during the CTE program, and it's like, we just sitting here with a radio station just to have it, just to say we got it.
Yes, I see the plans for the hospitality classroom, and I think that's great because that program showed us that it's working and it's had someone, this number has done an excellent job. So I have a problem with estimated costs to redo that classroom. However, Superintendent, I think that the board needs more information on any expenditure toward Mr. Turner and his and I don't know what plans Mr. Pearson and he and Central Administration have talked about, but I would like more information before we expend any funds, because the programming drives that part of the CTE program, and I've seen no programming come from that area in years. So,
Absolutely.
For any funds that are designated, and in the econ room, Mr. Renner, did the teacher request, or is it in the plan for hookups for a washer and dryer?
Not doing the plan to here, that's an excellent question to also ask.
Because she had personally talked to me over a year ago, when we put the new washer and dryers in the athletic complex, that she really needed a washer and dryer in the room to take, the wash, the aprons and so forth. And when you look at them, there are hookups there that I know for a washer. And the only thing that would need to be done would be the exhaust for a dryer.
The dryer, yeah.
When you're looking at that plan, could you please include that for that room?
Yes, I can do that.
And we have excess washer and dryer still available to us. And where we are.
Dr. Walker, one thing we can do too to satisfy the board about our radio TV program, as we mentioned, or as Trustee Miller said, bringing this thing back to life and making sure our students are getting them what they need. Can you have Mr. Turner come before the board, tell us what we're doing now with our TV station, what we're doing with our radio station. That way we can put this to bed, and then we need to come up with a plan for it. That way we can have a good radio and TV program, because we don't want to go over that.
Can I just clarify? I think there are plans in place, but I want to make sure I'm understanding that it is the antenna that is not functioning, that is interfering with the radio
radio broadcast. Do we all agree with that? The antenna,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I just verified that the antenna has hindered the radio piece, so when we bring this return forward.
The antenna blew off, but that radio station hasn't been on the air in months and months and months and months and
That's what
months.
I'm trying to know. I think the antenna though has been broken off this entire school year, is what I'm trying to just verify.
Yes.
And so we need to not only fix the antenna, but we need to. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Mr. Turner, his schedule is not extremely permitting. He is working with us in relation to the most cost-effective way to make the repairs. So just to give you an understanding of the time duration.
On the Mid-Park High School marquee repairs, that system is not connected to the other school system. It is on a separate system as far as the marquee, and you're sending a second request. What happened to the first request?
They've not come out yet. We've reached out to multiple providers to try to get service out. The basic response from the majority of them is they wish for you purchasing a sign. And they'll gladly put you on the maintenance program. Our structure on the majority of our signs and facilities is functional. Our computer, the computer componentry on the inside is where we're having issues. It's no longer serviceable and parts are limited. So we try to identify companies that said they have capability as well as availability of parts or access to parts that can actually repair. Or with that, or to make alternate proposals that we actually replace the internal.
Thank you. Our heating in high school, what is, through the winter, we're good. We're not anticipating, and I know that may not be the proper word, but what is the status of the heating for the high school finish out?
The heating has met all the required CSD1 inspections as well as the boiler inspections, so it has been inspected by outside firms that the school works with as far as the state level as well as our insurance company. We've had a third-party company we're working with right now to make sure the mechanicals are all operational. We've had some other challenges that have come up with certain components that we are sorting through at this point in time. And the control company is working with us so that we can fine tune that aspect. So in answer to your question, is it going to be good? It should be fine, safe, warm. Is it going to be perfect in every classroom? No. We're going to have variances that are going to be dealt with as we identify different control issues. Right now, we're in the process specifically of the main, if you will, the hearts, the boilers, the main heating core systems in each of the facilities have been gone through or up and running, with the exception of one of the components here that has a combustion issue. Boiler number 1 in the high school. We're going through and identifying the unit-specific problems in different rooms because of the couple of years of mechanical override and operation that has gone on in the district, so that we can start to utilize the control system the district had paid for in the past that is then not functioning or not used.
Okay, so you do have a written contingency plan in case there's an event that may happen in the next couple of weeks. There is a contingency plan, right? Classroom A goes out, there's an immediate plan.
There's not a written contingency plan, but we have majority of rooms that have heat. I mean, for instance, this weekend we had a flame failure, and the contingency plan was that I came up here this weekend and the contracting firm shut down the boiler because it was operating in a manner that was concerning. We fired the second boiler, which was fully ready to go, and that one warmed right up. The building, as you know, is warm right now.
But I mean, God forbid something happened to you, but a lot of times if things are right and you're not available, that if there is a written plan, people can reference it so that they can't get in touch with you. They know what's happened in case of this is what you're supposed to.
I'm understanding what you're saying.
That's
We don't have anything of that nature yet, but that is something, yes, we can put on our docket to move forward.
That's all.
Not a problem.
Ms. Kelly?
Where's the AD office?
I'm sorry.
The AD office, where are they moving?
To the team center. I was under that impression that was what the instructions were.
No.
No.
No. So is the swimming pool, what's the status of the swimming pool?
Nothing has changed in relation to the last report on the swimming pool.
What do you mean?
I mean, nothing has changed in relation.
Do we get the inspection, do we get the clearance, or is it because we need to do the repairs?
It's because there, we have outstanding repairs and things that need to be done on the pool to bring it back up into service, and the cost exceeded what was, I think, identified. I don't remember the specifics of that conversation from a month or so ago.
So, okay. Where was the report that shut down? You said it was the, what was the consent agreement consultant, Cynthia Rowe? Said before she left, she ordered the pool to be shut down?
That was an internal shutdown.
An internal shutdown?
Yes.
But they said it was unsafe to use the swimming pool because we violated safety regulations. There was never a report provided by like the health department or whomever to say what was unsafe about the use of the pool. We just got the proposal to fix some rust and every picture looked the same. Remember that proposal y'all sent? It was like the same picture for every problem? Yeah, same picture. So what's the update on that report that says the swimming pool area is unsafe to use, and why is the AD moving down there? Because to my understanding, we put in a weight room person to watch the weight room, to monitor that. So the AD could be up here when students needed to meet with them, because we already lack security, because we can't be on the third floor because we don't have security to secure 1, 2, 3 floors and all the doors. So we're gonna send the kids outside to go visit the athletic department in the team center, and we want them to come back to school. We can't even monitor the school inside the school with the security we got already. So I'm trying to figure out my bracket around this.
So I can speak to the components related to the facility as far as the staffing changes and things of that nature. I can't speak to that specifically.
What I want from you is where is the report?
The report.
The pool saying it's unsafe to use.
The last discussion that I recall when we discussed the pool was that the, I guess, desire was that we would contact the state inspector and see if he would come out and do a assessment, if I'm remembering this correctly, of the pool, but not do a formal inspection. And we've not been able to secure that. I don't believe they do that. They're not hired for contract. They're a state inspector. So, the health department, we can contact them. I'd be glad to.
I think for the board, Mr. Leonard, it would be advantageous just to have all the data that you do have regarding the pool and the updates that have happened since you presented to the board. That way you can see what's going on, right? Whether the health department had a visit or whatever. So we just need to see the data we have. I got a question about the signs. I mean, because it's been a long time coming. And then we got empty schools where we could just grab one of those signs and stick it right here at the high school. Grab a sign from Sorter that's empty, right? Put it outside in the front, attach it, and we got a sign. Since because that sign's been down since last school year. And so it is a marquee. It tells when we're having a football game, when we're having a band concert, etc. Right? So it is our marquee, so that the people who pass by can understand and know what the Raiders students are doing. So I think that's an easy solution. Since we haven't got any resolved from Michigan sign, maybe we just grab another sign and attach it.
Well, when you say attach it, if you found it correctly, sir, what you mean is we'll take the innards of the computing controllers on the inside of one side and hope they fit up perfectly into the other side. If not, we're likely to have service that, so we can complete that installation.
I'm just saying that we have to be innovative, right? And so I can take that whole sign up right now and attach it to my house and make it work. Because you can take the innards from Sorter, right? The master computer, whatever, link it to that same sign. You don't have to use this computer to this sign. And when we got all those, we got a good sinking funds from the taxpayers. Taxpayers pay for it. We want to make sure we see it in operation. Because, so we don't get flagged. Our taxpayers pay for that sinking funds, right? So, just a request. And as far as transportation goes, Mr. Mitchell, I think at one of our meetings mentioned about students at Dream Academy where buses had 5 or 6 people on them, right? And so we need to make sure we're not paying, first student all this money, because if we got 5 or 6 students on buses, we need to try to modify that to save costs. So I think we need to look at that cost from transportation to consider how do we save even more money. And I say that because you're over the transportation too as well. So. Any other questions, comments?
I don't have the first question asked about why is AD moved. I thought it was last year we requested that AD move to the Charles Ray Center, and then it was delayed because it was going to create problems to do it during the middle of the year. That we intended to do it for this year. Did we change our mind somewhere?
1 second.
Yes, you're correct, Mark. We had discussed the athletic director and his office. We relocated to the teen center, the other suite of the teen center at the top of the ramp, right at the photo ramp. And the reason for that is because there's no administrator in that building. And we're operating a weight room where coaches and kids are. And the coaches cannot be out in the hallways or down on the first floor. Remember, we had a Title IX case of a girl in the guy. So we needed some administrative support in that building to operate, especially if we're talking about bringing the swimming pool back into operation. There is, I talked to the athletic director. He wasn't aware that the board had allocated to the superintendent dollars for a weight room trainer. And that position had never been filled. It was on our books to fill, but he found out that there was only one applicant, and it was never filled. So he went back, I think, talked to Ms. Batiste. Now we're back online with a person supervising the weight room, so all athletes, male and female, can utilize that space 3 hours a day each evening. But we still need supervision of total competence.
I'm not questioning the move, it's just that I got the impression that that maybe that he changed his mind because his belly was wet. Okay, and I thought, okay, I go for another.
To your point, it'll be the responsibility of our maintenance and or custodial crew to snowplow that ramp and salt it each day during bad weather. During lunchtime or the lunch period, that administrator will come from the teen center back to the lunchroom to his duties, as the lunchroom administrator. That's what I'm told. And that he has a disciplinary area of athletes. So if they get a referral from the main building, then they will go down to the teen center to speak with him. I understand they're getting new radio communications. So the main building can communicate with him, and the teen center to let them know that this student on their way to see you for disciplinary action.
So will the AD have a security guard? Because in the event he's in a meeting with the student with the door closed doing disciplinary things, there's room for activity to be in that building. Who's going to be monitoring the door? Is the door going to be locked? How are the kids going to get in and out? He's just one person. And that's a pretty large building with areas where people can, duck off. So if they can duck off here on the 3rd floor in the dungeon with the fully staffed security, the teachers and administrators, with the AD, what makes you think that this one person, along with his secretary, is she full-time? Is she here full-time? Is the AD being pulled to different meetings? Is he negotiating different things for different teams? How do we know he here full-time is going to be at that building full-time? And who's going to secure the money that comes to the AD office? Is there a safe down there for that money? Who's going to make sure that that's safe? They don't get robbed.
There's procedural problems. I don't know if we had looked at a security person position for that building that we opened up. Dr. Walker, for the transfer of one from the main building to the airport. Those are logistics that I'm not looking.
And that's what I was the last time, and we said, well, we're just gonna hire somebody for the weight room, because that's what we're done with the weight room. But I guess I missed something. But I mean, you know, the majority rules, that's where what feels is the solution. Then whatever goes down in there, he gotta know that he's gonna be responsible for that, the athletic director. It's a violation because he's on guard for that. So he has to make sure that that building is secure, because anything that goes down on his watch.
That's why he's an administrator. Currently, we have no one there, and it's open season.
How they get me?
How are they getting in? Coming through the overland.
Like what? That's what you're talking. But anyway, I got one more question. Okay, so I had got this report about the superintendent told the bus people that they are, well, I guess it was Miss Markovich, came from that lady, Miss Markovich, saying that, because I'm not trying to figure out her role, because I hear a lot about the changes that she made in the district, but she don't ever report it. I'm trying to figure all this out in her contract and why she's still here. But she apparently told transportation that they must allow the kids on the bus with no IDs. So the bus drivers are feeling like their safety is being jeopardized when we are doing this whole safety thing, because they are being forced to allow students on the buses with no IDs. Is this true? Come on
I
now,
have to
somebody
find
else.
out specifically for you to answer that question. I can understand where it would be concerned either way. You know, you don't want to lose kids. They can't get home because they're not responsible. They don't carry their IDs. Parents are upset. You don't want to make people unsafe. So I can see it working in that direction. I would need to find out.
I say going home, I say coming on the bus.
Yeah, either way, I'm just saying.
But I heard it came from you, when you get directed from Markovich. So who you need to check with, because that's your office that you run. So I'm not quite sure why you need to check with somebody who you supposed to be in charge of when the directive came from your office. So what is there to check?
Because
Is it yes or no?
I don't know the yes or no part. I can't give you an answer.
Oh my God.
So what I can say again is that I will verify. But I can understand if it was a problem with the students getting on, not having an ID, and the bus drivers not wanting to let them on, that to come to school, we don't want our kids not to come to school. So trying to find a solution, to me, that would be a solution. And to your initial comment about the role of Dr. Markovich, she is a consultant, the treasurer, to support the district in its endeavors and in its work. She's got a lot of experience and things of that nature, and that is her role, is to support us. Those ultimate decisions, you're right in mind, but in those day-to-day lines, absolutely, I would support, you know, that decision to make sure staff experiences to help make sure that we are maximizing on safety of students and staff, and that we are not jeopardizing our goals. So
I don't support that decision, and I will let Treasurer know that. That is not safe for anyone.
Well, I would like to
Some people may
verify the information
may not
first.
know who all their students are.
If I could verify the information first, and then you can take your action, let me just verify what is actually.
So, Dr. Walker, Trustee Miller brought up a point. I think what is when we look at the hierarchy, we know that she is going to hear from the treasurer, but she should not be giving any directives, because those are directives have to come from you, your office. So I think we need to actually figure out what is the hierarchy, what is her job, because I don't really see her in that title. So that's something that she really can't interfere with the district. She's a consultant.
Right, but she was speaking what I'm saying, you're absolutely right. I agree, so she's never acted on her own accord. I'm just saying that I, right at this moment, don't remember if we made it. I know there was an issue, I can remember the conversations and the two sides of the coin. Do you let the children not get on the bus, and then you don't have them at school, their parents take them somewhere else, or do you require the ID? So I know we had a conversation, made a discussion, I'm just not, like I said, I'm bringing this woman over, decided, and she certainly could have on my behalf of me to call. I just need to verify this, just a detail, because I'm not at the moment. I do feel very much that I was involved in that conversation, and I'm part of the board with it. I just, like I said, I need to verify it, because I don't exactly remember, I do remember the debate for both sides, that's all I'm saying.
Ms. C.
Yes, I did hear trustee Gully ask, what is the extent of that relationship from Treasury to Benton Harbor Consulting? Am I correct, trustee? Did you ask?
Is that a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's what I was saying, the treasury assigned Dr. Margaret to be a consultant in Benton Harbor Area School. She's in the district 3 days a week. She provides support to me directly. So this is why I'm saying that could be an example of where in that conversation we did execute, or she does help us execute functions within the district she's been in.
I think they're looking for the timeline. What is her exit time? She's still
Yeah,
here.
I think was that more so
Right,
your
because
question?
I know that we voted on that.
Yeah, she has a contract coming next month. Is that what you're asking?
I'm trying to get clarification from trustee.
Right, so her contract comes up next month, so we don't have to approve it if we don't want to.
I absolutely agree. Our contract will be coming before you in the month of December. I will again confirm on as a consultant for treasury, just to know you're 100%. But you're absolutely right. We choose not to.
This is the first I've heard about the non-IP situation. I certainly would hope that we go back to mandatory IDs for transportation from middle school through the high school. And I can understand non-IDs for K-5, but I think that at the age group we're dealing with 6 through 12, and we are providing IDs at the school level. What a better way to utilize them than to make sure that who's being on the bus is the actual person. There are ways if a student forgets his ID or leaves it at home, the bus driver certainly will allow him a ride to school. But once he arrives, then he has to get a slip from the main office to ride home. We've been through this for years and years, and I can't see going back, not requiring students to have IDs at the secondary level. Because our transportation, and one thing you have to understand, our drivers, we have a heck of a turnover rate. Who drives this morning or today may not be at work tomorrow. So you've got a new person or a sub-driver on that route. They have no way of knowing if that actually is a student or not. If it's someone who riding from whole school
Yes, Mr. Taylor, could we make that a matter of record that board members would like to see if it has happened, if reinstated ASAP because of safety? Yes. And that's just fine.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, I will confirm, I just want to bring before the board the question of when you're competing, as we are for students, there are some concessions that we have to consider. And I'm going to ask you to think about the parent whose child may have ADHD, they've forgotten their IDs. I agree with Mr. Mitchell, absolutely. They're allowed to go on that bus, they should come to school, they should get their ID. And we are in place, just posing the question back to the board, and we'll happily, make sure they don't have to have the ID. However, I'm going to pose back to you that that can be a variable for me and our parents, because what we deal with all the time is that I'll just go to the other district because they don't make us do that. So to weigh out what are those hills I hold them to die on? Is the ID getting on the bus, and especially, at the beginning, we're only in November, so getting kids in that habit, and then used to it, I can say, when I came last year, kids didn't get IDs, so I'm not sure what the process was on this. and when it came back to play. But I am a big fan of the game, and I'm a big fan of being, going to the game. So I support the board's position. I do have a responsibility though to point out that variable. We have had parents that have made those decisions, and I was asking, you know, if you know of other schools that provide transportation, do they require kids to have an ID? And some may, I don't know that, we can find that out as well. I just want to ask the board to keep that in its consideration.
Currently, our district is providing transportation for the other schools, Countryside. And, First Student Transports Countryside. They cut our drivers driving. Did you not know that?
I'm saying that I don't know.
But okay, so they have ID, and they have bus marchers, and they hold people accountable for those actions. And if the parent's gonna transfer a child because they don't wanna follow the rules, then they'll be back, because there are rules at the other school that they have to follow. And right now, as the school of choice people stated, that they have a wait list. When you make your comment in the newspaper about who's paying the parents, they already said they this is full, so they got a wait list, so they're not going nowhere no time soon, okay?
Anything else under department updates? Okay, as far as the Benton Township piece, we'll talk about that Saturday. I just wanted to keep that on everybody's radars. Mrs. Molly, staff report number 13.
Okay. First staff report I've ever written, so this is the beginners. Subject Board of Education Partnership Agreement. Reasons for consideration. The board needs to vote to establish the next step of more training connected to the partnership agreement. Create a master calendar for the Board of Education in conjunction with facilitation by the NPE staff. Recommended action that the Veterinary School Board of Education votes to approve the aforementioned Board of Education professional development.
Thank you, Mrs. Momley. May I have a staff report for, may I have a motion for the approval of staff report number 13? Moved by Mr. Mitchell, may I have support? Supported by Ms. Cass. Any questions, comments, concerns about the calendar we talked about last week? Secretary?
Lisa Gowen,
Yes.
Margaret Gass, Martha Momney,
Yes.
Angelique McDonald,
Yes.
Marletta C. Yes. Stephen Mitchell, Joseph Taylor.
Yes, staff report number 13 passes.
May I add, I will forward this to you. I did get this afternoon sometime. An update, Dr. Teasley, affirming that the different deadlines that we have met. She is kind of pushing us to make a decision on the board governance standard, and I figured we might be able to take a few minutes on Saturday to discuss that. But I think that was the only thing in this that was needed to be done and decided within a reasonable time.
All right, thank you. Dr. Walker, any comments?
Question, President, what did you skip?
Yeah, I'm skipping the rest of it. We'll talk about that Saturday.
Just wanted to commend Scott Johnson for the report from the auditors to go from the 8 findings down to 3. The huge impact his expertise has had on lowering the deficit. Scott, you'll be missed, and your commitment to the district is duly noted, and just wanted to acknowledge you, so thank you. I also wanted to thank Sodexo again for being here, their commitment to be at the board meetings, the ways they've invested in our students has been really amazing. They do a lot of pro bono work for us and staff and providing extra students, so they've been a great partner and trying to help us move forward. So I just wanted to again acknowledge Paige for being here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. On to board comments. Ms. Guthrie?
No comment.
Ms. Gass? Mrs. Momley?
Of course. Okay, I just want to make a comment. I observed an adult at MLK working with a very distraught student, and I'm assuming she's one of the counselors there. And one of the nice things was that because she was in the building, and we have that, she was able to work with that child and help that child calm down and refocus so that then they could actually focus on what the problem was. And a lot of times our classroom teachers don't necessarily have that time to spend one-on-one with the student, to get them totally calmed down and give them an opportunity. So I was glad to see that, and I was glad for the student that they was given the opportunity to calm down and then really take a look at what was going on. I hope that we are taking a serious look at the security on our building. The doors that are supposed to be locked are locked and not propped open, especially considering that there was another shooting today. It did not occur in a school, but it occurred near a school. So I think it was in California. So I hope we are really paying attention to that. And then in the newspaper, there was an article about Parenting 101 that we're going to be offering. From the information I received, plus here in this article, I'm looking forward to see how this works, and I hope we have a number of parents show up, because the gentleman, Carlisle Sutton, who's working on this, has got some very specific strategies and training for the parents. And I don't know how many times at expulsion meetings and stuff, we've heard parents say, I don't know what to do. And so I'm hoping that this really is successful and that it really helps our parents, because as it helps our parents, it will also help our school district. I thought I had one other thing, but I can't remember it.
No comment at this time, thank you.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah, I'd like to personally thank Mr. Johnson for his dedication over the years. I enjoyed working with you, Mr. Johnson. I found you to be a very professional person, and thank you for your dedication to the kids in the school district. And secondly, I'd like to thank the Sodexo staff for providing coffee and tea products for us this evening. For those of you that didn't know, back on the counter, and when I called her, she was very gracious and said that would be no problem. We provide them, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
So kudos. I didn't know until Mr. Mitchell got up and got a cup of coffee. I'm like, this guy got some coffee. He must have a coffee machine. So thank you. I'm sorry about that. But it's new, right? And so, and thanks for the food contest with our students, right? By showing them something different and how to engage in being the top chef. So we appreciate that. And to Ms. Johnson, you sit back, we don't mean to ask you all the questions, but we just want to know that you have such a good demeanor and a good heart and a good spirit. And I just want to say thank you, man, because you never raise your voice, you're calm, but we see the work today that you've done through this art. So kudos and good luck in whatever you do. That's it for me. Anything under other?
Yes, thank you. I would like to, and I'm sorry to Mr. Johnson also, and concerning, there's a Chinese proverb. It says, he who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes. But he who does not ask a question remains a fool forever. You have been very gracious. Thank you, and much success in your future. I would like to see Mr. Taylor added on the agenda for Saturday. Speaking of questions, to go over questions from the board to staff, and we get clarity as far as the partnership agreement is concerned, the consent agreement, and to make sure that from the state down that we're staying in a lane and there is no confusion about what questions we ask or how we ask questions. So I'd like to see that added on the agenda. And under my other, we did get a letter from MHSAA, and I did not see that on the agenda, and I do not know, I did not understand why. So I'm wondering, can we talk about that?
We can talk about it on the other. I just sent the letter, and I think in the email I stated this is what we got from MHSAA. We talked about it at the board table, and I think Tim from Troon basically stated that the board has 2 options, right? We can go send someone to the executive committee to say, hey, we didn't do this as far as the sanctions, right? The probation based on basketball. So that's what the email was about, and that's up to the board. Do we want Shum Law Firm to go back to the executive committee? I think they went to the director of MHSAA, and he pushed it away because he said based on the photos and based on the statements by the coaches and everybody else, we're deemed guilty, right? So that's just an option for us. We want to go back to see if we can clear our name or not. That's up to the board.
Remember what else I was gonna say? No, we're starting to get the actual library furniture back in the library at MLK, and it's really starting to look like a real library. And I have a volunteer who has run the library for a while, and she has been coming, I don't know how often, and her daughters came in Thursday and helped redid stuff. And it's starting to become a resource for the teachers and the students.
Mr. Mitchell? Yes, I think it's very important that we still pursue the information with the High School Athletic Association. I'd like to make a motion that we allow chairman to appeal to the executive director or board, I think it's executive board, on our position in the school district. And that I'd like to see an internal investigation by our athletic director on the situation. But after reading the investigation from the High School Athletic Association, I'm getting mixed reports within the report. So I really would like our administrator to submit a report on his findings. That would certainly help us.
We have a motion on the floor from Mr. Mitchell, asking that Truman Law Firm take our request to rebuttal to Michigan High School Athletic Association Executive Board.
And then that is the AD you're requesting.
Well, I think under that item, the AD can show up, the principal or the superintendent based on that letter.
Okay.
That was two parts, you know.
And then internal.
Internal investigation. So I do have a comment on that issue because when you think about the coach, really the coach is responsible for other coaches or non-coaches, volunteer coaches, whatever it is. So I support that investigation because I think it needs to happen because our name has been smeared and any student coming to this district may not come because even though we don't have sanctions for playoffs, for example, your son may get chosen as Mr. Basketball, right? He's chosen as Mr. Basketball, the write-up would be Mr. Basketball from Ben Harbor, but Ben Harbor was sanctioned for 2 years because of recruiting violations. Oh.
If you get, that reference, you know what I'm saying? We what I understand.
Okay. So I need support. Supported by Ms. Katz.
Okay, Lisa Gully.
Yes.
Margaret Gay.
Yes.
Martha Momley.
Yes.
Angelique McGowan.
Yes.
Marletta Seat, yes. Stephen Mitchell. Joseph Tate.
Yes. All right, so that motion passes. Any other business before we close?
Yes, the agenda for Saturday, what is the deadline for submitting items?
That's probably tomorrow.
I'll email you.
3 hours.
That's what I'm saying, it's
Long
gonna be
we got
around 3 hours.
I gotta work. 12:30, so.
So hopefully we can get through GMB and then work on some board stuff right quick.
And we will be getting the agenda when, so we need to submit any.
Right, we can't submit anything else because we're gonna go by the agenda and the agenda submittal stops on Wednesday.
That's what I asked. So when we get the agenda, we'll have till tomorrow evening to resubmit something.
I don't know about tomorrow evening, because we've been time to create it. I think maybe we say by noon tomorrow because it's so late right now. Because this is not like it's for next week, it's for this Saturday. So,
I don't even know what the agenda is, that's what I'm saying, so I
yes,
see the agenda.
I think we all know what the agenda is, it was G&B, that's what we talked about for the retreat.
Now we got to go on the staff report, and then we also add the questions, so that's 3 things.
Right, so so the agenda started out, the retreat started out a while ago, everybody was informed, G&B, right? So we were bringing them back to talk about facilities. But since it's a retreat, we can add some items, but the main meat of the meeting was G&B, facility assessment. That's what we're sent all for. So now we can, if we have something for the agenda, and Dr. Walker and everybody can get it together, right? Because sometimes it's a little late. So we just want to make sure we can talk,
So we're sending the agenda items to you?
you can send them to me with Dr. Walker, so they can put them on the agenda, because we don't know how long that G&B report's gonna be. So we're just trying to fit in some board work as well, but the initial retreat was for the G&B facilities assessment.
I just wanted to work out this.
Okay, no, that's okay. And so maybe, so Dr. Walker, that's why I say noon tomorrow, to give you guys enough time to find out some of the things like partnership, consent.
So to submit the money.
Correct. So is that okay to submit your questions by noon tomorrow?
I'm done with my submissions, so I'm fine right now.
Okay.
I think you need to put it in writing.
I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't.
All right, well, I hope they remember.
I wrote it down.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So be resolved that the Benton Harbor Area School Board of Education meeting be adjourned. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Martha Mommy, may I have support?
Support.
Supported by Ms. Gallagher.
Lisa Gomes?
Yes.
Martha Jazz? Martha Mommy?
Yes.
Martha, Anna Lika?
Yes.
Marletta C. Stephen Mitchell? Joe Taylor?
Yes. All right, so this meeting is adjourned at 8:58.